Well, the Pentagon has just admitted it has UFO debris and has released the test results. A stunning admission by the U.S. government that it possesses UFO debris was recently made in response to a Freedom of Information Act request filed over 3 years ago by Mr. Anthony Bragalia of UFOexplorations.com. Link in the description. In a reply letter, the U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency has ended decades of speculation by verifying that UFO materials have indeed been recovered. Now referred to as UAP, unidentified aerial phenomenon, rather than UFOs. Some of this material was placed with a defense contractor for analysis and storage in specialized facilities. Incredibly, part of the information released discusses material with shape recovery properties, much like the memory metal debris allegedly found at Roswell, a UFO crash in 1947, as reported by Major Jesse Marcel and Colonel DeBose. And based on the documentation received, it appears that the retrieved debris exhibits other extraordinary capabilities in addition to remembering their original form when bent or crushed. Some of these materials have the potential to make things invisible, compress electromagnetic energy, and even slow down the speed of light. Although much of the reported details are redacted, what can be gleaned is that these technologies represent a literal quantum leap beyond the properties of all existing materials known to man. Of course, unless, of course, you've been following this channel, which we've been talking about a lot of this stuff. But it's confirmed. This is really interesting stuff. So let's dive into these reports. This is from the Defense Intelligence Reference document. And it has stuff on metallic glass, status and prospects for aerospace application, 30 pages. Biomaterials, materials for advanced aerospace platforms, metallic spintronics, metamaterials for advanced aerospace applications. And you can go online and on UFOexplorations.com, read that article and find a link to this document. Recently unclassified through FOIA. This is quite a revelation, because now we're starting to learn enough about the science so that we're starting to be able to know what to ask the government for through FOIAs to get a lot of these documents released, so that we can know more about the research that our tax dollars have been spent on doing, so that we can save ourselves a lot of time doing a lot of this research ourselves as we try to hunt for materials that we could use to build, advanced spacecraft of the future, as is our mission here, right? We're all on team Get Off the Planet, right? And I want to give a shout out to everyone in the live chat watching us. We have 125 viewers right now. We've been live for 3 minutes. This is great. Giordino Bruno says it's a PSYOP.
I have a hard time believing this is a PSYOP.
I think this is disclosure, man.
This is moving toward the 180-day countdown, the 6-month countdown. This is really drip that they need to give us.
I agree, Mark. I think this is everything coming. This is a lot of everything the government knows about these things coming out. Where's the pieces of the, so this cast metallic glass wedge. So this is bulk metallic glass produced by casting. Yeah, so they use that injection mold process, similar to, there's a company called Liquid Metal Technologies that builds a lot of these metallic glasses and stuff. So yeah, I'm familiar with a lot of this stuff. This is interesting. Talks about the mechanical properties of these composites and their resistance to plastic deformation, fracture and fatigue. Of course, there's lots of applications that these materials, they're extremely lightweight and they have really high strength and really high flexibility, including they're similar to these memory metals. It's not quite the nitinol, or not quite a shape retention alloy in that sense, but these are some interesting materials, I will say, and which there are other aerospace properties and applications are maybe yet to be determined. So we've actually ordered and are in the process of getting some of these ordered. We got to get the 3D molds made first, and then we can go and get actually some of these pieces ordered of this metallic glass so we can start doing some of our own experiments in the lab. And of course, I'm here joined by our lab team here tonight. Todd Desiato is even here. We have Jeremiah, Chris, Mark, and myself, and the dog and the lab dog. So yeah, we are interested in learning more about these types of materials and how they apply to, you know, what the government's figured out, because we're in a debate now whether the government's actually used this technology and material to build a craft yet. Do they have a functioning craft? You know, are those Tic Tac things ours? There's a lot of people we've talked to on these conferences that are, you know, really intelligent, really high up in these corporations like Boeing. The guy from Boeing was basically saying he thinks the Tic Tac's ours, right? That's what he said. So, again, me and Todd just were having a discussion a little bit before we decided to go live and talk about this with the group. And Todd, we were talking about just these metamaterials in general and their ability for as materials for trapping light, and you know, about their fragility, just how fragile these things are. Did you want to comment more on that, or say something more about that? Maybe you could put it in your own words.
Well, I mean, right now, you know, nobody really knows what the metamaterials are, but the objective, as I understand it, is the metamaterial allows you to create a resonance on different parts of the hull that then concentrates the energy density in, you know, in one location or in over a certain area of the hull to create an artificial gravity field. So there's, well, it could be what has been talked about as the pumping effect to store energy in this material. And I can see that, you know, if it works kind of like a laser, you can pump it with low energy, and it'll eventually build up to a very large stored amount of energy in the resonance of the material. The material has to therefore have low losses, and it will build up until the losses, you know, exceed the input power, and then it won't go any further. But in order, even though it may only take a small amount of energy at a time, or a small amount of, you know, it's low power going in, the overall effect is still a very large energy density stored before you're going to get any kind of general relativistic gravitational effects through you know, traditional general relativity approaches.
Right. Yeah. So it's these materials are pretty much going to vaporize before we can get enough energy pumped into them to reach these the states that we kind of need to warp space-time physically, according to general relativity.
Now, you could consider superconductors and stuff, but still, you know, they have a limit as to how much they can conduct before the magnetic field makes them no longer superconductors, and then they melt down. I'm going to try some experiments with bismuth with my NMR machine behind me. And I'm going to try some experiments with bismuth because it's very diamagnetic, which is very similar to the effect you get with a superconductor, is it expels the magnetic field. And so we're going to try some experiments as to how to reflect the magnetic energy off of the bismuth and see if we can get an overall propulsion effect on the entire system. See if we can make it radiate enough energy from the material itself to propel it.
That is awesome. I'm super glad to hear that you're about to approach that exact topic, because dealing with quantum mirror effects or phase conjugate mirrors, being able to reflect a incoming wave against itself, or just to either store up that energy is exactly where I think we need to go with this. Since a lot of these systems we're dealing with energy density anyways, and it's very difficult to get the energy levels up, it would be nice if we could at least recapture everything that we put in.
Yeah, my hope is though that with the Larmor precessions and magnetic fields, that we can create an artificial gravity field that moves not only the material but everything inside it, that doesn't require, megajoules of energy density, per square meter, stored in the hull skin to produce gravitational effects. If we can get all of the atoms aligned and spinning at nearly the same frequency in a gradient magnetic field, we can get everything to walk or flow forward in whatever direction we want it to go, without having to have an enormous amount of energy density. And so that's, the goal of the experiment behind me here.
Todd, what do you expect the outcome of such experiment to be? Like, what would it prove, and how much energy can you put into the sample?
Yeah, I wish I knew. I'm working on that kind of stuff. I asked Jeremy the same question yesterday. What material will allow us to store the maximum amount of energy density in that material? And is it a waveguide? Is it just a magnetic resonant material? Is it an electric resonant material? What kind of material will allow us to vibrate it or, excite it to the point where it has an enormous amount of energy density, and yet it's not disintegrating or melting down from heat like an induction furnace?
Right. And I had mentioned in my broadcast last night, I did a presentation with some materials in it, and I talked about a couple things that might be suitable for that. One was the refractory metals, in particular on the periodic table, because they have the highest melting point above 2,000 degrees Celsius. That was slide number 18 right here. So titanium, vanadium, chromium, magnesium, zirconium, niobium, molybdenum, tectinium, rubidium, rhodium, hafnium, tantalum, tungsten, rhenium, osmium, and iridium would all work, with a specific on these ones in the orange on my screen.
We have vanadium in the lab. We have vanadium oxide.
Yeah, vanadium's interesting. Vanadium is what was the magic ingredient in Damascus steel. They found that the Wootz ingots that they used to make Damascus steel, in the original Damascus steel, contained a small amount, trace amounts of vanadium. They came from a mine which had vanadium in just natural in the mine, and that was just a coincidence that actually led to the remarkable metallurgy that was used in those original Damascus steel blades. That was an interesting fact, but that was vanadium. So yeah, it's interesting. And certainly titanium is interesting because, titanium nickel makes that memory metal, nitinol. And there might be other key mixtures that make shape retention alloys similarly, yet to be discovered. But certainly ones that could work as waveguides as well. We'll have to look in this and see what. Let's explore a bit and see what their dielectric properties are.
One thing I was wondering about bismuth, given its high spin ratio, if you were to orient the subatomic nuclei of the bismuth atom, would you end up with a magnet? Would it magnetize while it's oriented? Todd, that's for you. Oh, I can't hear you, Todd. You're muted.
To understand the question correctly, bismuth is
it's a 9/2 spin.
Yeah, it will be magnetized. It's just magnetized in opposition to whatever magnetic field is causing it to align.
Right, I understand what the concept of diamagnetism. The question is, when we create a state of dynamic nuclear orientation in a bismuth atom, would it increase its diamagnetism? Will it make it magnetic in any way, ferromagnetic? Would it change the magnetic properties of the bismuth by dynamic nuclear orientation?
No, but at some point you're going to apply a magnetic field, and then the atoms of bismuth are going to align, the electrons are going to align, and the spin will align, and it'll oppose the applied magnetic field, and then at some field strength, the entire sample of bismuth will become saturated, and then the field, any change in the applied field won't have any effect on the bismuth. But at some point, it'll become saturated.
Okay. Okay. Also, for those who are just listening, diamagnetism is when you apply a magnetic field and it opposes that magnetic field. It's a very interesting effect that's not seen that much in nature. Bismuth is the most strongly diamagnetic material on Earth or naturally found in nature. It is twice as common as gold, meaning that it's pretty rare, and there's very few known uses for it. It's a side material that's found alongside lead mining, and it is one of the main ingredients in Pepto-Bismol. So they were putting something that's twice as common as gold, meaning it's pretty rare, inside a stomach ailment as a powder for your stomach ache. That's the only thing we could find to do with bismuth. But hopefully, if we find some other use for it in these anti-gravity experiments, that it may be a material that's used in the shell of the craft, the price of bismuth will go from, right now it's around $3 a pound, probably up to over 100,000 if we found any use for it. So that's something to look at.
Yeah. Right now I'm gonna get some bismuth, and then I'm gonna make like a sheet, and I'm gonna use magnetic fields at different frequencies and try to make an assembly that the whole assembly wants to, walk or propel itself in one direction. And so that's the goal. And basically it's a non-reciprocal electromagnetic device. But, we shall see if we can get that sort of thing to move. But I also want to see like how much, if I can test the saturation point, see how much energy I can store in it, and then, up to the point of saturation. Now, I'll tell you, I've been using silicon steel in transformers for, decades. Over 30 years, I've been working on transformers. And when the core saturates, it usually is accompanied by a very large surge in current that blows stuff up, and or blows out your fuses or melts down your wire. So but I've never seen like cores want to just lose all their mass and walk away when all the electrons line up. So
those are the valence electrons, though. We're talking about subatomic nuclear orientation, which is an effect that we've probably never seen before. With pulsed EPR, which is what Frederick Alzafan was working on. That's an effect that nobody I know of has ever tried, other than Frederick. I was speaking to David the other day about the attempt that was made by Hathaway Labs, and his critique about it was that they weren't using the aluminum that they predicted would work. Instead, they went with a ruby crystal. And Frederick, who was alive at the time, got into a big argument with George Hathaway about that, and wanted to have nothing to do with it, because his calculations said they'll only see around a 10% weight loss, which is exactly what they ended up seeing. So there hasn't been any actual replication of this experiment yet, which is one of the reasons why I'm so excited to finally bring it to fruition and see if it works. And if it does work, we're going to have to figure out how to build the hull of this craft, the metamaterial layers, so that it works with resonance of a whatever frequency we decide to work with, and be able to actuate all of the subatomic nuclei of the hull of the craft and create this effect throughout the craft. So it all really depends on what frequency we decide to work with, because the lower the frequency, the thicker the hull, or the thicker the chambers will be. The higher the frequency, the smaller. And then you have tighter tolerances the higher you go, because you have You need to be within that 1 part per million in order to hit the right frequency and the right magnetic field strength, similar to NMR.
Yeah, I can see this leading to some type of propulsion, but it's not, quote, gravity. So
It's not really anti-gravity. Yeah, it's the name is a misnomer. It's more of a gravity shielding or inertial mass cancellation.
Yeah,
more appropriate.
Because, I mean, for it to really be affecting gravity, I mean, what I'm trying to do with the Lamore precession is mimic it. But I mean, in order for it to really be affecting gravity, it's got to be affecting, you know, the spin at the Compton frequency, and that's a much, much higher, like 10 to the 22 hertz, 10 to the 21, 10 to the 22, something like that. So it's way up there. And you know, at that scale, your magnetic field strength is enormous.
That's above terahertz. That's like,
yeah, oh yeah, way above
quadrahertz or Googleplex hertz. I don't even know what you'd call it at that point.
terahertz. Gigaterahertz, yeah.
Yeah, it will be around gigaterahertz.
But yeah, I see if to really affect gravity, you've got to be in that bandwidth, that spectrum, and you know, we're not going to get there with low energy. But if we can mimic the same thing at low energy, that's a better approach than trying to forcibly store, you know, millions of joules of energy to try and create a gravitational field based on Poisson's equation, or, you know, Newton's equation. That's just, you're not going to do it. I mean, if you could create that much energy density, the weight of it would be ridiculous. You know, so you want to fly, it's not going to help.
Yeah, this is interesting. I'm reading through these documents more, these this new release and stuff, and it's interesting that none of the citations are from before 1999 that I can see on the bibliographies of the research that they looked into. But I know for a fact that, you know, Ed Fouche talked about this in 1998 at IUFOC. If you go to my channel and find that YouTube video, if you do Edgar Fouche 1998, you find this lecture, and I think it's right around the
Guitar Center's president,
the 20-minute mark or something. Yeah, so I have a whole list of these things. So he talked about the foggles, which is one thing that was later confirmed by thedrive.com, and they confirmed that Area 51 people that brought out there have to wear these foggles. Ed Fouche is one of the only people that talked about it, and one of the first people that talked, and probably the first person that I've ever found on record historically that ever talked about it, which is kind of which is curious. So it proves that he did work out there, or at least, you know, worked at some place that used these same tactics, because he knew about that, and no one, and, you know, he couldn't have got that if he made up the story like a lot of these other guys. You can tell they're liars because they don't have a lot of these key details. He talks about quasicrystals here at 3505. You can go to and make some predictions about them, and then at one he talks about the TR3B skin coating, which is like that. It's kind of like a metamaterial or a phase conjugate mirror, similar to what I was describing, but he doesn't use the right words. I forget what he says, but you can go check this out. So like I really think that a lot of this technology existed before then, and this is kind of like a smokescreen that the Pentagon's doing, because I think this technology goes way back decades, and they're much more advanced than they're letting on, and they were much more advanced at an earlier date than they're letting on. So, according to the research that I've done, I mean, and just like the fact that Ed talked about those things, metamaterials and quasicrystals, in 1998. So, how did he know about that stuff if none of these documents predate 1999? Obviously, he got that information from somewhere, and there's more research going on into this than they're letting us readily know about, and it's all locked in, I believe, EG&G, and and Battelle, these private corporations that have done the majority of this research for the past 50, 70 years or more. But that's my personal take on that matter. I don't want to keep the stream going too much longer, but you guys, or anyone watching live is welcome to join our private discussion for the after chat. Again, I'm going to be setting up a members only section on my website soon, so you'll have to have this kind of invitation will only be in the future open to members only. So just keep that in mind. I'm going to post the link to our Zoom chat, and we'll let people in as
Jeremy, I just wanted to say that we peaked at 311 viewers. I've never seen this many viewers on your channel before.
It's the clickbait title. It's the clickbait title. People want to see and it's not clickbait because we don't make clickbait here. If I'm gonna put something on my channel and say it, it's gonna be legit. So here, you guys can come and join the Zoom conference for the after call. In the future, this is only going to be open to members only. So as this channel begins to grow. So yeah. Thank you, Tim Poole, and thank you, Ian Crossland, and thank you, YouTube, for making this all possible. Smash that like button, and don't forget to subscribe. And check out the links in the description so you can follow them through to. If you go to UFO Explorations, you can link. These links are right here to these PDFs where you can go and read the FOIAs and these documents from the Defense Intelligence Agency detailing this new revelation. All right, thanks for watching.
Sure.
Disclosure is happening here. Scientific disclosure. This is science for humanity, and thank you very much. We'll catch you on the next one.
Share, like, and